Commander Jace Sullivan stood at the observation deck of Earth's orbital defense station Arcturus, his weathered features reflecting in the reinforced plasma glass as he watched the approaching Drachnid vessel. The aliens had requested this meeting, claiming to want to establish a joint military training program. Sullivan knew better. They were here to assess Earth's defenses. The Drachnid ship, with its organic-looking design reminiscent of crystalline structures, docked with practiced precision. Sullivan straightened his midnight blue uniform, the silver insignia of Earth's United Defense Force catching the station's artificial light. He'd dealt with alien species before, but the Drachnids were different. They were warriors to their core, and their reputation for looking down on lesser species was well documented. When the airlock cycled open, Sullivan's first impression of warrior Commander Nyxis V. Harrell was that of contained power. Her scaled skin shifted between deep purple and midnight blue depending on the light, and her eyes, silver with vertical pupils, regarded him with barely concealed disdain. She moved with predatory grace, her ceremonial armor adorned with marks of countless victories. "Commander Sullivan," she spoke, her universal translator giving her words a slight metallic edge. "I expected someone more impressive for Earth's defensive coordinator." Her head tilted, 4 small horns catching the light. "Your species is remarkably fragile-looking." Sullivan maintained his professional demeanor, though his jaw tightened slightly. "Warrior Commander V. Harrell, appearances can be deceiving. Perhaps you'd like a demonstration of our training protocols." "Training protocols?" Nyxis let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "My warriors train in gravity wells 3 times stronger than Earth's. We can process combat situations twice as fast as human neural pathways allow. What could your species possibly teach us?" Sullivan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then you won't mind participating in a joint exercise tomorrow. Unless, of course, you're concerned about maintaining your reputation." The scales along Nyxis's neck flared slightly, a sign of agitation he'd studied in their species profile. "Very well, Commander. Tomorrow at 600 station time. I'll bring 5 of my best warriors. Try to make it interesting." As she turned to leave, Sullivan called after her. "Warrior Commander, bring your environmental suit. You'll need it." The next morning, Sullivan waited in the station's advanced training chamber. His chosen team stood at attention, not the largest or strongest humans on the station, but the ones with the highest endurance scores. When Nyxis arrived with her warriors, their environmental suits gleaming, he noted their confident swagger. "Today's exercise is simple," Sullivan announced. "Endurance training in variable conditions. We'll start with standard Earth gravity and atmospheric pressure." Nyxis's silver eyes narrowed. "These conditions are hardly challenging, Commander." "Then let's begin." Sullivan activated the chamber's controls. The gravity remained the same, but the temperature began to rise. Humidity levels increased dramatically. "Welcome to Earth's equatorial regions, Warrior Commander. We'll be running combat drills for the next 4 hours." The first hour passed with the Drachnids showing their superior strength and speed. But as the second hour approached, their movements began to labor. Their environmental suits, designed for their homeworld's dry, cool climate, worked overtime to compensate for Earth's humid conditions. By hour 3, 2 of Nyxis's warriors had to step out, their bodies unused to prolonged exposure to Earth's atmospheric composition. Nyxis herself remained, her movements still precise but noticeably slower. Meanwhile, Sullivan's team maintained their pace, their bodies evolved for Earth's challenging conditions. "Impressed yet?" Sullivan asked during a brief water break, noting how Nyxis's scales had darkened with exertion. "Your species," she paused, studying him with new interest, "is more adaptable than we anticipated. Perhaps there is something to learn here after all." "That's why we suggested the joint training program," Sullivan replied. "Every species has its strengths. Together we could be formidable allies." As they concluded the session, Nyxis approached Sullivan privately. "Commander, I may have misjudged humans. Your species lacks our raw strength, but your endurance, your ability to adapt, these are warrior traits we respect." Sullivan nodded. "Tomorrow we'll be running tactical scenarios. Your warrior's superior reaction time combined with our endurance strategies. Imagine the possibilities. For the first time, Nyxus's lips curved into what might have been a genuine smile. Indeed, Commander. Perhaps this joint training program will be more valuable than either of us expected. As Sullivan watched her leave, he knew they'd crossed an important threshold. The Drachnids had come expecting to find weakness. Instead, they discovered that humanity's strength lay not in raw power, but in their unrelenting persistence and adaptability. It was just the beginning of what promised to be an interesting partnership. Word spread quickly through Station Arcturus about the joint training sessions between human and Drachnid forces. Commander Sullivan found himself fielding questions from his skeptical superiors, while Warrior Commander Nyxus dealt with increasingly concerned messages from her high command. Sullivan stood in the station's tactical command center, reviewing training footage when his second-in-command, Major Diana Wells, entered. Her expression was grim. "Sir, we've received word from Earth Command. They're concerned about the intensity of these joint exercises." "Of course they are," Sullivan sighed, pausing the holographic display. "They're worried we're giving away too many of our tactical advantages." "The Drachnids are learning our limitations," Diana pointed out, her dark eyes serious. "Their analytical capabilities are exceptional. Commander V. Harrell has been documenting everything." Before Sullivan could respond, the station's alert system pulsed amber. Nyxus strode into the command center, her scales rippling with agitation. "Commander Sullivan, we have a situation. 3 of my warriors have gone rogue." Sullivan straightened. "Explain." "They believe this training program is beneath them." Nyxus's silver eyes flashed with anger. "They've taken control of one of our shuttle craft and are planning a demonstration of Drachnid superiority. They intend to breach the station's civilian sector." Diana's hand moved to her sidearm, but Sullivan held up a hand. "Their objective: to prove that humans require Drachnid protection." Nyxus's scales darkened with embarrassment. "They plan to demonstrate how easily they could overwhelm human defenses. My authority has been questioned due to my growing respect for your species." Sullivan activated the command center's tactical display. "Major Wells, initiate Protocol Omega, quiet alert, no visible security response." He turned to Nyxus. "Your rogue warriors expect us to be weak. Let's use that assumption against them." The next hour was a flurry of quiet preparation. Sullivan deployed his forces strategically, focusing on the station's environmental controls. When the Drachnid shuttle breached the civilian dock, they found the sector apparently abandoned. "Commander," Nyxus whispered, watching the tactical display as her warriors moved through the station. "What are you planning?" Sullivan's eyes remained fixed on the display. "Your people are stronger, faster, and can process tactical information more quickly than humans. But you have one critical weakness. Your environmental requirements are far more specific than ours." Understanding dawned in Nyxus's silver eyes. "The atmospheric controls." The 3 rogue Drachnids moved confidently through the station, their armor's sensors detecting no immediate threats. They reached the central atrium before Sullivan gave the signal. Instantly, the environmental controls shifted. Temperature plummeted while humidity skyrocketed. The Drachnids' environmental suits, calibrated for combat rather than extreme condition survival, began struggling to compensate. "Your warriors' suits will protect them from harm," Sullivan explained, "but they'll be extremely uncomfortable. Now, Major Wells." Diana's voice came over the tactical channel. "All teams execute." Human security teams emerged from concealed positions, wearing specialized cold weather gear. The Drachnid warriors found their superior strength meant little when their movements were hampered by environmental conditions they weren't prepared for. The confrontation was over in minutes. The rogue warriors, their scales pale from the cold, were surrounded by human security teams who showed no signs of discomfort despite the harsh conditions. "An impressive strategy," Nyxus admitted as they watched the rogue warriors being escorted to detention. "You turned our own arrogance against us." Sullivan nodded. "It's not about who's stronger or faster. It's about understanding and adapting to the situation, something both our species could learn from each other. Later, in Sullivan's office, Nyxus paced restlessly. My high command will use this incident to question the value of our cooperation. They'll say it proves humans are devious, untrustworthy. And what do you say? Sullivan asked quietly. Nyxus stopped packing, her silver eyes meeting his. I say it proves what I've begun to suspect. Humans are far more complex than we initially believed. Your strength lies not in raw power, but in innovation, adaptation, and understanding your opponent. Those rogue warriors saw humans as primitive, weak. It made them predictable. Sullivan stood, moving to stand before her. You've begun to see beyond those assumptions. That's why you're a better leader. Perhaps, Nyxus's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue, this incident will help convince others. The recording of how a supposedly weak species outsmarted 3 elite Drachnid warriors. It makes a compelling argument for continued cooperation. It's a start, Sullivan agreed. But we have a long way to go. Tomorrow's training session will focus on combining our strengths rather than comparing them. Your warrior's speed and power, coupled with our adaptability and tactical thinking, could create something unprecedented, Nyxus finished, a new respect evident in her voice. I look forward to it, Commander. As Nyxus left his office, Sullivan reflected on how far they'd come. The incident with the rogue warriors could have derailed everything. Instead, it had become a powerful demonstration of why their species needed to work together. Sometimes, he mused, the best lessons came from unexpected challenges. The warning sirens blared through Station Arcturus at 300 hours. Commander Sullivan jolted awake in his quarters, the emergency lights casting red shadows across his room. The AI's voice was calm but urgent. Multiple unidentified vessels approaching. Energy signatures match Krivak's raiders. Sullivan reached the command center to find Nyxus already there, her scales a deep purple of battle readiness. The Krivaks, she hissed. They've been raiding outposts across 3 sectors. They consider your Earth technology primitive. Then they're in for a surprise. Sullivan activated the tactical display. Major Wells status. 6 Krivaks warships, sir. They're jamming standard communications. Our outer defenses are holding, but they're probing for weaknesses. Nyxus stepped forward. Commander, my warriors are at your disposal. We've faced the Krivaks before. They rely on overwhelming force and superior technology. Sullivan nodded. Then let's show them what human Drachnid cooperation looks like. Major Wells, implement Protocol Theta. Nyxus, I need your warriors ready for close quarters combat. The next hours were chaos. The Krivaks breached the outer defenses, but found themselves facing something unprecedented: human and Drachnid forces fighting as one. Where Drachnid strength faltered against the raiders' energy shields, human ingenuity found ways through. When human endurance began to flag, Drachnid speed and power provided crucial support. The battle reached its climax in the station's main reactor chamber. Sullivan and Nyxus fought side by side, their movements synchronized from months of joint training. A Krivak's commander, his chrome armor gleaming, sneered at their cooperation. Humans, he spat, requiring aliens to fight their battles, pathetic. Sullivan smiled grimly. You're missing the point. We don't require help, we choose to work together. That's what makes us stronger. The demonstration that followed would be talked about for years. Human tactical planning combined with Drachnid combat prowess. Sullivan's teams used the station's environmental controls to their advantage, while Nyxus's warriors executed precision strikes that would have been impossible alone. When the last Krivak's raider fell, the reactor chamber bore scars of plasma fire and physical combat. Sullivan helped Nyxus to her feet, noting how her scales shimmered with pride rather than arrogance. You're bleeding, Commander, she observed, indicating a gash on his arm. Just a scratch, he replied. Your left arm's looking a bit stiff. A worthy price for victory, she said, then added softly, our victory. The aftermath of the Krivak's raid changed everything. Footage of human and Drachnid forces working together spread across both species networks. The Drachnid High Command, initially skeptical, now saw the value of cooperation. Earth's military leadership, once cautious about sharing too much, recognized the benefits of true alliance. In Sullivan's office, a month after the raid, he and Nixis reviewed reports of joint training programs being established across multiple stations. Her scales now regularly showed the deep blue of contentment rather than the purple of aggression. "The Krivaks have gone silent," she reported. "Word of their defeat has spread. No one expected humans and drachnids to work together so effectively." "Prejudice blinds people to possibilities," Sullivan replied. "Or in this case, aliens." Nixis's scales rippled with amusement, a gesture she'd picked up from spending time with humans. "Indeed, my initial assessment of humans was flawed. Your species lacks our physical advantages, but your adaptability, your innovative thinking, your sheer determination." She paused, searching for words. "Makes us pretty good allies," Sullivan suggested. "More than that." She moved to the observation window, watching human and drachnid troops training together in the distance. "It makes us stronger together than either species could be alone. We thought we were teaching humans about combat. Instead, we learned about cooperation, about seeing beyond surface differences." "The best lessons often come from unexpected sources," Sullivan joined her at the window. "So, ready to start planning the next joint exercise?" Nixis's scales shifted to a new color, one Sullivan had never seen before. "Actually, Commander, I've been authorized to discuss expanding our cooperation. The Drachnid High Command is interested in establishing permanent joint defense forces." Sullivan smiled. "Funny you should mention that. Earth Command sent me similar orders this morning." As they began discussing the details of their expanded cooperation, both leaders reflected on how far they'd come. What had started as a reluctant training program, marked by prejudice and assumption, had evolved into something unprecedented: true partnership between species. Outside the window, human and drachnid forces continued their joint exercises, their movements now synchronized, their strengths complementing each other. It was more than just military cooperation. It was proof that understanding and respect could bridge any difference, that true strength came not from physical power or advanced technology, but from the willingness to learn from each other. The story of how a proud alien warrior learned to respect humanity had become something greater, a testament to the power of putting aside prejudice and working together. And as new challenges loomed on the galactic horizon, both species knew they would face them not as separate forces, but as one unified team.